Next news. Breaking news.
A deadly hantavirus cluster explodes aboard a cruise ship. 3 dead, multiple suspected cases. The World Health Organization says human-to-human spread may have happened. And right as the accountability clock keeps ticking for Anthony Fauci, a brand new virus alert suddenly floods the news cycle. Americans have seen this movie before. They're asking the obvious question. Is this simply a real health event getting coverage, or is the fear machine once again being revved up at the exact moment the public starts demanding answers from the old COVID guard? The timing here is impossible to ignore. Now let's be clear and responsible. Hantavirus is real. It's typically linked to contact with rodent droppings, urine, or saliva. And health officials say the overall risk to public is low, but that does not erase the larger problem. Public trust was shattered during the former Biden administration and the Fauci era, when Americans were lectured, censored, and jerked around by so-called experts who got too much wrong and faced too little accountability. So now, when the World Health Organization says 7 passengers and crew on a ship have become ill with 3 deaths and 1 critical case, people don't just hear health bulletin. They hear warning bells. They wonder whether another fear cycle is being launched before facts are fully settled on a packed cruise ship. Even a low probability transmission event gets attention fast. And for families watching at home, this is not abstract. It's about whether institutions learned anything, whether transparency will finally happen, and whether the public is being informed or managed again. And speaking of national security and whether America is finally getting serious after years of elite failure, here's an update that you need to hear right now. You see, the White House has just announced over $30 billion to secure America's critical mineral supply chains and named a specific Alaskan project as a key strategic asset for U.S. mineral independence. I've personally been to the VCUFF drilling site myself in Canada. I've held the core samples with my hands. But what's happening right now in Alaska is bigger than most people realize. Because President Trump just unveiled Project Vault, a $12 billion strategic mineral reserve designed to stockpile essential resources and keep America strong, secure, and independent. That means projects like VCUFF matter right now. If you want to look at a company tied directly to this America First push, take a look at VCUFF. They're traded in the U.S. under VCUFF and in Canada as VCU.V. Check the exclusive briefing, only for Next News viewers, link below, and see why this story is getting some very serious attention. Now back to the story that has people asking why virus panic always seems to arrive right on schedule. Now here's the twist the corporate media does not want to dwell on. Even Reuters and the World Health Organization are saying this virus does not typically spread person to person. The working assumption is that the first infected passengers likely picked it up off the ship, possibly in Argentina, and that the broader public risk is low. So why does this story suddenly feel like wall-to-wall alarm? Because the facts say caution, but the timing screams narrative. And that's exactly why Americans online are connecting the dots again. Cardio Fixer, OMG, don't let Fauci and the Chinese get a hold of this hantavirus. Schultz says what millions are thinking, keep Fauci and China far away from this next story. Mad Maximus takes it a step further and points to a lab breach report that has people asking who's really behind the curtain. Here we go again. I'm sure Fauci's involved. They're tying the hantavirus scare to missing vials investigation. Now, Jan Schoeman boils the suspicion down to one blunt question. Was Anthony Fauci involved? The Fauci question isn't going away. Next, H. Johnson drags Peter Hotez and gain of function into it, accusing the big pharma crowd of running the same old playbook. Fauci and Peter Hotez are probably scrambling out there trying to harvest some hantavirus for their next gain of function scam with big pharma. That post widened the target from Fauci to gain of function. Up next, TC delivers a short jab turning Fauci into the nickname hantavirus. There's a picture of the hantavirus, right? So after that swipe, let's get to the basic facts itself. Grok lays out how it usually spreads, where the cruise ship cluster likely started, and the death toll so far. And it's in a different language that I can't read. So the common explanation is rodent exposure and very limited spread. Now, Insider Paper reports the part that changes the temperature fast. World Health Organization suspects person-to-person transmission on the cruise ship. They said Tuesday it's suspected that it may have spread between people on a cruise ship, with 3 dead among 7 confirmed and suspected cases. These are the symptoms, including fever, stomach problems, fatigue, and it gets worse. You may experience trouble breathing, dry cough, and rapid heartbeat. That's according to the Cleveland Clinic. So their suspected human spread is what has people on edge. Reuters picks up next with the agency's own explanation, including PPE on board, and why officials still say the public risk is low. Listen.
Our assumption is that has happened, and that's why we are operating and working with the ship to make sure that anyone who is symptomatic, anyone caring for patients is wearing full personal protective equipment. The medical personnel who have boarded the boat have brought additional PPE as well. So that's our working assumption. But just, again, contextually, hantaviruses don't typically transmit that way. It's really a rodent infection. The initial patient, the initial case, and his wife, they joined the boat in Argentina. And with the timing of the incubation period of hantavirus, which can be anywhere from 1 to 6 weeks, our assumption is that they were infected off the ship, perhaps doing some activities there. Based on the current information and what we know about previous outbreaks, WHO assesses the overall risk to the public as low.
It always seems to start like that, doesn't it? Reuters gives you the official line. In the calm down message, ABC turns to the human cost, with the American passenger trapped on board as 3 people are already dead.
This morning, the crisis at sea. 3 dead after a suspected hantavirus outbreak on a luxury cruise ship, and there are at least 4 other suspected cases, including a critically ill patient. The cruise line, Oceanwide Expeditions, says medics are working to evacuate sick passengers from the Dutch ship, which is currently anchored off Cape Verde in Africa.
There's a lot of uncertainty, and that's the hardest part. All we want right now is to feel safe, to have clarity, and to get home.
Jake Rosemarin, one of 17 Americans trapped on board, making this plea on social media.
And what's happening right now is very real for all of us here. We're not just a story. We're not just headlines. We're people with families, with lives, with people waiting for us at home.
The ship left Argentina 3 weeks ago with about 150 on board, originally bound for Antarctica. According to the cruise line, the first case, a Dutch passenger, presented symptoms on April 6th and died April 11th. The World Health Organization says his wife fell ill on the repatriation flight to Johannesburg and died in the emergency department 2 weeks later. Now, contact tracing for passengers on that flight has been initiated. On May 2nd, another passenger, a German national, also died. Hantavirus is a rare but possibly deadly illness spread by exposure to rodents. Experts say person-to-person transmission is even rarer. For now, passengers are being told to stay in their cabins. The cruise line says they were not permitted to dock in Cape Verde and are now considering sailing to Spanish islands and docking there, adding they are deploying all available resources to assure appropriate medical care and support for passengers and crew.
So that's ABC's take on this, showing the crisis through the broader outbreak report. And now we have the full message from that cruise passenger sobbing about being stuck on the cruise ship.
I normally wouldn't make a video like this, but I feel like I need to say something, so I wrote a few things down. I am currently on board the MV Hondius, and what's happening right now is very real for all of us here. We're not just a story. We're not just headlines. We're people with families, with lives, with people waiting for us at home. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that's the hardest part. All we want right now is to feel safe, to have clarity, and to get home. So if you're seeing coverage about this, just remember that there are real people behind it, and that this isn't something happening somewhere far away. It's happening to us right now. I'll share more when I can, but for now, I just ask for your kindness and understanding. Thank you.
So that's the passenger's message cutting through the spin. Real people are stuck in limbo. Now the World Health Organization posts its formal case count, 7 sick, 3 dead, while still insisting the global risk is low. Hantavirus cluster linked to cruise ship. April 1st, the boat sets sail. 147 passengers and crew, 7 people become ill. Among 3 have died. 1 is critically ill, 3 reporting mild symptoms. Based on the current information, including how hantavirus spreads, WHO assesses the risk to global population from this event as low. We're working closely with health authorities from the countries involved and the ship's operators to ensure passengers and crew get the information and support they need. World Health Organization will continue to monitor the situation and update the risk assessment as more information becomes available. So the World Health Organization sticking to its low-risk assessment despite the deaths. Reuters follows with a nuts and bolts breakdown of what it is, how it spreads, and whether the public should actually be worried.
3 people have died in an outbreak of a rat-borne disease on a luxury ship. So what exactly is hantavirus, and should you be worried about it spreading?
They're relatively rare infections.
Daniel Bausch is a specialist in tropical diseases at the Geneva Graduate Institute in Switzerland. He said the virus is only rarely passed between humans and is most commonly spread when people have contact with rodent droppings, urine, or saliva. But a cruise ship might create the conditions for person-to-person infection.
We know that cruise ships and other events where we pack a lot of people into small places, that they always have the risk of human-to-human transmission of different pathogens.
Hantavirus usually begins with flu-like symptoms such as fatigue and fever. 4 to 10 days later, coughing, shortness of breath, and fluid in the lungs appear.
And so we can see in hantaviruses that people develop essentially a pneumonia or a consolidation of fluid filling up in their lungs, and that can happen very rapidly.
Bausch says there's no specific antiviral drug for hantaviruses. Treatment, he says, often requires hospitalization in an intensive care unit.
It's not the sort of treatment that is generally available on a cruise ship.
The World Health Organization said it's been told there were no rats aboard the ship. Its working assumption is that the cases originated in a Dutch couple who joined the ship in Argentina. That couple may have been infected before joining the cruise.
Hantaviruses have or can have at least a relatively long incubation period. Incubation period is the time from when you get exposed to something to when you fall sick. And so in hantaviruses, that can be, in extreme cases, up to 6 weeks.
The World Health Organization assesses the overall public risk from this current outbreak to be low.
This is not the next COVID-19. This is not going to be a big outbreak. This is not a reason for your average person in the world to panic at all. If you had tickets for a cruise, I don't think you need to cancel it. And now that you know that it's possible, because it's pretty rare.
So that's the Reuters take. So this is the aha moment. The issue is not claiming Fauci caused the cruise ship outbreak. The issue is that after COVID, after censorship, after mandates, after the expert class wrecked its own credibility, every new virus headline now lands in a country that no longer trusts the people pushing it. That's the real story. Social media lighting up instantly with posts asking, here we go again. Was Fauci involved? Not because evidence proves that, because the old public health establishment trained Americans to question everything. The pattern is what matters. Accountability, the pressure rises, a fresh health scare grabs headlines and focus shifts. Maybe coincidence, maybe not, but the establishment created this suspicion. The establishment created this suspicion, and now it cannot control it. So the bottom line, this cruise ship outbreak is serious for people on board, and we should pray for the sick, the families, and everyone working to contain it. But the American people are also right to demand facts, transparency, and zero fear-mongering. Under President Trump, this country is done bowing to unaccountable expert rule and manufactured panic cycles. We can care about public health without surrendering common sense. We can track a real virus without pretending the trust crisis doesn't exist. So here's my question for you. Do you believe this hantavirus story is being reported as a public health update, yes or no? Or as another distraction right when Fauci pressure is heating up? Let me know in the comments, share this report, subscribe, but make sure you text raw feed to that number on the screen, 844-840-4963, to beat the algorithm and get direct updates from me to your phone when it matters most. Check out the Next News merch shelf below this video. Stay sharp, stay fearless, and stay America first.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this. Share this now.